Welcome to We're Engaged, the podcast that features Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine's community partnerships. I'm your host, Sandy San Miguel, the Associate Dean for Engagement. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for joining. And if you're a regular, welcome back. We're really excited to share with you all of the wonderful partnerships that Purdue Veterinary Medicine has. We want to inspire you to either join in on these partnerships or start your own. And today, drumroll, we are highlighting our partnership with Horsemanship for Heroes. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I'm going to go around, or you can go around, and let's introduce ourselves. Tell us about yourself and your program.
What about Leanne?
I can start. Sure. So my name is Dr. Leanne Neforth. I'm an assistant professor of human-animal interaction at the Center for the Human-Animal Bond within the College of Vet Med, and I study all things human-animal interaction. So working with humans and canines, and then, of course, what we're highlighting today, working with humans and equine.
My name is Kay Hooper. I'm the co-founder and executive director for Horsemanship for Heroes in Reno, Nevada. I am a veteran in the U.S. Army, 23 years, multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, and got involved with our program, love our horses and what they can do with their human-horse bond. And we're here just helping veterans, emergency responders, and their families heal.
I'm Dr. Hooper. I'm Kay's husband and co-founder as well for Horsemanship for Heroes. And I'm also a retired U.S. Army, 26 plus years, and multiple combat deployments, is just like Kay. And together we discovered the magic of the human-horse bond and never looked back from there, and realized that we could do something with this, with our own horses, that would help address trauma. And so we just jumped in, started, and a couple of years later, we're up and running and going. Things are going wonderful. So it's exciting to be with these amazing animals and helping our heroes heal. And it's just incredible what the outcomes have been so far.
This is wonderful. And before we go any further, I want to thank you both for your service. Very, very much appreciated for everything you've done and everything you're doing now and in the future. Can you tell us about Horsemanship for Heroes? Just describe the program, what's your mission, and why is this so important?
So Horsemanship for Heroes is a two-phased 16-week total program. We've got our phase one, the first 8 weeks, where our participants come for 90-minute sessions once a week. And phase one is pretty much ground focused. And we're very much just focused on establishing the bond with the horses, introducing, some of our participants have never been around horses before, and some have. So we start from the very beginning on safety and how horses communicate, and basically, we'll teach them how to groom a horse and how to lead a horse. And we start from the most elemental things, gradually working our way up through those 8 weeks, doing things like round pinning and obstacle courses, and all of it designed for our horses and our heroes to establish a bond together in a relationship. We do grounding exercises and mindfulness throughout the courses. And then at the end of that first 8 weeks, we put our heroes into the saddle and let them experience what it's like to be on a horse. And then we offer a second phase, which is another 8 weeks of riding. So the people can just walk for the entire 8 weeks, or they can get all the way up to a lope, which is a pretty fast gait. It's really up to them. But I think the fundamental thing about our program is the clientele that we're dealing with are people that we understand. They want to be challenged. They want to be independent. And so we make sure that our program is designed to give them just that.
And Kay nailed it. So a couple other things. So we use equine-assisted psychotherapy and learning to achieve our results, which is really empowering our participants, our heroes, to be self-sustaining, be more established trust, to be able to interact better at home. And during the process, our curriculum is the same, as far as what we use horsemanship as the vehicle to get us to the end state, which is healing within each individual. And everybody's path is a little bit different, but they all find a way to get to a spot where they're very comfortable. And so, regardless of what's happening, we the focus is on what's happening inside. The tool that we use in the vehicle is teaching horsemanship.
Excellent. So, tell us about how you all got together.
Sure.
Like,
So I
how
can
did you
take
meet?
Yeah, I can take this one. So in 2023, we were both at a PATH conference, so the PATH International Annual Conference in North Carolina. PATH International is the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. Kay and Scott neglected to mention that they just received huge accreditation as a premier accredited center, which is a huge undertaking and a huge honor. So congrats to them on that.
Congratulations.
Yes, big deal. So we were at the conference and Kay and Scott were presenting about their program. So I went to their talk, sat through their presentation and where they talked about kind of why they were doing what they were doing, what their mission was, what their vision was for the program, as well as kind of highlighted the manualization of their program. So unlike some programs where each session is kind of, determined on that day or the goals are set for that day, their program is really well laid out. So each week has a very specific purpose and very specific activities for what happens. And as a researcher, I was sitting in the room saying, wow, this is really fascinating. Here we have a really well-designed program with individuals who, have a long history themselves in the armed forces as well as working with horses, and they're providing these services to other heroes. And in that, they were talking about the impact that their program had had thus far and the outcomes that they were seeing. And I was really impressed and excited to go up afterwards and talk to them and introduce myself and say, you have no idea who I am. However, I'm really impressed with your program and we should definitely talk about partnership moving into the future. So we ended up connecting after the conference and then talking about kind of how we could work together and how we could kind of design a project and future studies to really measure the impact of what they were doing already really successfully.
Love this. I love hearing all the stories of how people connect. So tell me how you combine your superpowers. What do you each bring to the table?
So first of all, when we did meet Leanne and she came up to us, we were absolutely thrilled because we see the value of having a research-based collaboration and for it to be Purdue University just is absolutely incredible with y'all's reputation. And so we were thrilled for that. We also know that equine-assisted services still has a ways to go when it comes to proving efficacy and proving to the greater medical community out there that it is a effective, proven program. For us to be part of that and to be able to partner with Leanne to provide that proof is, again, absolutely thrilling for us. So we kind of got we had a very interesting start to our program. We had retired from the Army in 2016 out in Western North Carolina. And then right around COVID time, made the move out here to Reno. And we got our first horse as a kid. I'm from Texas originally. And I told Scott, if we're going to move to Reno, I finally get to have horses. That was the deal.
You have to.
Our horse Latte, who is an integral part of our program, and Leanne's got lots of stories about her. She arrived, she was 2.5 years old, and she arrived off the transport sick. And I didn't know what was going on. I saw her standing there and she was lethargic and she wasn't the horse that I knew from, she came from Olive Branch, Mississippi. And so I called the breeder and I said, hey, Rita, there's something wrong with Latte. And she said, well, Kay, did you take her temperature? And I was like, and I very rapidly realized, and this is horrible, but I knew how to ride. I knew how to clean a stall. I knew all that stuff, but I didn't fully appreciate what was involved in proper care and management of a horse. And so I was on Facebook and I saw this ad from Post University out of Connecticut for an equine studies degree. And I had some leftover GI Bill. So I decided, well, let me just take a couple of classes. And I ended up loving it. It was like you finally study something that you just really absolutely enjoy. And it's, especially in your 50s, suddenly it just means something completely different. And while I was doing that, I was introduced to equine-assisted services and specifically focused on the veteran population. And so I went to Scott and I told him about it. And in the meantime, he's going to take over on the story.
Okay. In the meantime, so I had been daily taking and turning our horse Latte out into our pasture and going on walks with her and establishing a relationship with her, which was really, really fascinating. And during that time, also, I think for Kay and I, it was really the first time in our lives, at least adult lives, that we had the opportunity to really relax, to not be in charge of a bunch of people, both of us or either of us, and just really have to worry about ourselves and our property. So while that was going on, I think my mind started to relax, and Kay would look at me in the morning and say, "Do you know you had a nightmare last night?" And I'd say, "No, I don't. Do you remember this? You said this." So those started to accelerate, and to the point where, "Did you know you jumped out of bed last night?" No, I didn't. And so what was actually happening was my mind was relaxing, and I was starting to have flashbacks and to reliving trauma from my combat experiences overseas. Well, so obviously, I don't want a pillow between myself and my wife, so I go to get help. But the thing that made it most unique was while this is happening and I'm spending time with Latte, our horse, I started to really connect with her and felt something special. And so I went to Kay and I told her there's something happening with Latte. I don't know what it is, but it feels incredible. And I think she is really helping me without me knowing what help I need. But it's just I feel safe and she is like understanding me.
And so as part of my degree, I ended up focusing on that. I developed the curriculum for Horsemanship for Heroes. I had to do a big literary review on equine-assisted psychotherapy and got into the actual research piece of it to understand what was going on out there. So I think we kind of came into it with an appreciation for the value of research and for what we're doing, and then a personal appreciation for the power of the human on. And so when we met Superpower Leanne, it was just almost like it was totally meant to be.
Beautiful. I love this.
Yeah.
So tell us, Leanne, how are you interacting with the program? What are you bringing to the table from Purdue?
Sure. So from Purdue, I just want to acknowledge they just shared their story. And I think that that's a really unique story in the story of equine-assisted services. A lot of individuals are providing services without the personal experience necessarily. So that's something that is a huge, huge strength of their program. And as we have done the project, which I'll describe momentarily, it has shown through the data, in a very, very bright manner. But yeah, so from Purdue's side, we are partnered right now. We have just finished year 1 of data collection on a study looking at the psychosocial impacts of the horsemanship-focused equine-assisted learning program. So we are looking at veterans, emergency responders, and family members who go through either phase 1 or phase 2 of their program and looking at clinically validated responses to surveys related to psychosocial health and well-being at pre, post, and then 3 months follow-up. And we're also in that process doing some in-depth qualitative interviews. So we're not only seeing kind of the clinically validated measures, but we're also doing in-depth interviews to understand kind of what changes we're seeing and why. And then we're also doing weekly check-ins using what's called the PANAS, which looks at mood, negative and positive affect, kind of how that changes throughout the program across the participants. So these are questions that Ann, Scott, and I had from the beginning. And when we started kind of discussing what, our partnership would look like, we decided to kind of start here. And then kind of, throw in some different things kind of as we move forward. So this is really a pilot study. Like I said, we just finished year 1 of data collection. We're going to do another year just to build some statistical in in our numbers. But thus far, results have been really exciting. So we're thrilled to be working together and to be kind of giving Kay and Scott the data that's helping them kind of make decisions in the future, develop their program, but also validate their program and what they're doing.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing part of this podcast. Well, the podcast was born to not just highlight these amazing programs like yours, but to also help other people develop university and community partnerships. And one aspect of those partnerships is that they're mutually beneficial. So Can you each say how you've benefited from the partnership?
I would say from my perspective, just having that external look, having somebody that's able to provide the instruments to collect the data and then actually interpret that data to show us that we are having an effect on people is just really invaluable. We get feedback every day from the participants that come through. But sometimes you wonder, well, are they just saying that? And so when they actually speak to a researcher like Leanne, and she knows all the right questions to ask, I think the results are just that much more powerful. So yeah.
I think from my end, I think the fact that the program was so intentionally developed and has this manualized curriculum, I think that's really amazing on the research side, because a lot of time and effort went into creating that, and it works for them in their programs. So as a researcher, when I identify programs that have these types of curriculums, it's definitely of interest to me to kind of look into them further so that, maybe someday this can be replicated, in whatever capacity that may be, so that the same outcomes could be more accessible for veterans, either with, greater Reno or, greater US, to kind of figure out how we can best implement these programs for a military and first responders.
And I'm just going to add one thing to that, Sandra. So the fact that we have a writing component is kind of unique, because a lot of the programs out there are ground-based only. And we've been asking our participants, in the term surveys, what did you think was, because you have to go through phase 1 before you go through phase 2. So was phase 2 as effective? Did you have as much of or did it have as much of an impact on you? And the responses we're getting is that it does, because when you're sitting on the horse as opposed to standing next to the horse, it's a whole different type of connection that you have to have with that beautiful animal. And so hopefully in the future, we can really look at that to see, to kind of promulgate that out there as well, that having a writing component with this population of people is actually a really positive thing, and that it doesn't have to be just on the ground.
Thank you. I can tell you all have a really great relationship. So can you share with us what makes your relationship so successful?
Did you unmute? Oh, I'm going to say, go for it, Scott.
So our relationship is wonderful because I think there's a mutual respect between us, the three of us, for the others, and the professionalism, the determination, and really, I think more than anything else, a shared passion for what we're doing. And that is something that Kay and I love about working with Leanne, is she's passionate about it. She will give us feedback. We're fortunate enough for her to be able to come out here for a conference that she had to attend and reel her into our barn just so she can meet the herd. And you could just see her face light up with the horses, and that's the way we are. And so we have a mutual respect for both the animals that we love as well as our population that we're serving. And to us, it's all about service. And it's nice to be with somebody that can tell us maybe not what we want to hear if necessarily, but to help course correct if necessary. And we have full autonomy to do just that.
And I got to say that it's so impressive that Leanne is so available. And I don't just mean to the participants too. She hands out her cell phone and she's like, call me whenever you can. And she does everything she can in order to make it easier on them to provide the feedback for this research project. And I don't know if everybody's like that. I don't guess they are. So just her willingness to just, kind of put her personal life, not to the side, but still take some pretty amazing steps to facilitate this is just so impressive. And we are just really, really blessed to have her.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So are we. Leanne's pretty awesome.
Oh, thanks, guys. No, I think from my perspective, I think, Scott, you said mutual respect, and my first thought was mutual respect and trust, right? And trust that, we can communicate openly and course correct. I think that's something that I really value in our relationship too, is when, we're setting things up or discussing results or, discussing next steps. I know that you guys will course correct me as well, or, say, what are you doing? Or no, that's not true, or, whatever is appropriate in that moment. I know that line of communication is open. And I really appreciate that, because I think you guys are the experts in what you're doing. And it's my job to kind of capture that and to speak into it. But just like you're speaking into the research side, very much enjoy working with you guys, and all your participants are awesome too, which is definitely a perk. I very much enjoy the interviews and the contact that I have with all of them.
Follow up. This is
Sure.
great. How often do y'all communicate, and what's your favorite mode of communication?
I think it depends. Scott, we didn't hear you. You were muted. No.
Face to face, I think you need to make quarterly visits, and that works out great. I'm sure the university will appreciate that.
Hey, no, I would love quarterly visits. That would be awesome. I think more realistically, it depends on kind of where we are on the project. We have cohorts, so I think depending upon where we are within the cohort is when we check in more, or if there's opportunities to present together, for example, at future conferences, we'll contact then. But I think in terms of how we communicate in all different ways, via email, via Zoom call, via text message, via phone call, dependent upon kind of the timeliness of what we need to discuss. And that's something that I really appreciate, being able to kind of jump from one communication tactic to another, knowing that, I'm not bothering them and they're not bothering me. And if we need to talk about something, it's relevant in that particular time. So call me or text me. And I think that works out really well for us and kind of what we have going right now. But yes.
Well, I've only experienced you all as a team for a few minutes, but I can't see how any outcome in the universe, any possibility that this team can't have truly impactful results. So, can you share some of the things that you have accomplished by working together, some of those impacts?
Sure. So from the research side, we're halfway through data collection. So right now I just have preliminary findings. So I can share briefly what those are, but they are preliminary and will change most likely given the increase in participant numbers. But we are seeing a clinically significant change in multiple mental health outcomes, even though the program is not focused on mental health like a traditional couch therapy session would be, for example. We are also seeing in the qualitative interviews a theme that's emerging in probably greater than 75% of interviews without prompting is related to something along the lines of, I would not be here without this program, or my friend would not be here without this program, which I think speaks very loudly to the success and the outcomes of the program. I think, more broadly speaking, we're seeing impacts of not only the horse-human bond, like Kay and Scott have talked about earlier, but also the importance of the people and the community that's being built in terms of the healing process. So ultimately, that's kind of a sneak peek into what we're seeing, but we're really excited on both the clinically validated survey measures as well as the qualitative interviews to note kind of the overwhelmingly positive outcomes and interactions that these programs are facilitating in the healing journey of both military veterans and emergency responders.
So to sum it up, you are saving lives,
They
not
are.
just changing lives, you're saving lives.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a personal question before we get into the lightning round. There's actually two. How many horses are in the herd now? Does Latte have company?
We have 4 horses in our herd. And I will say that when we first started, we did a pilot and at a different facility just to kind of validate our program. And at one point we had nine participants and 9 horses and 9 volunteers out in this arena. And all I could say was it was a lot of legs. It was way too And so when we started up again, we're heading on our second year, so we're still pretty new. We decided that a smaller size was really important. And so our phase 1, which is the ground piece, is 2 to 3 people. I think this next term we're trying to maximize. So we've got three people in every class. And the feedback we got, because we invited people that were part of the pilot to come back and do the program when we stood up Horsemanship for Heroes, was almost to a T. Everybody said it's so much better to have the smaller groups, that personal interaction, as opposed to the large numbers. So it makes it challenging, because when we talk about research, we are trying to get larger numbers because that's what research wants. But in our case, really the only way we can do it is to do that over time, hence our 2-year research project. But we are at 4 horses. We have a Frisian named Oka, and she's beautiful. Everybody loves the big, beautiful black horses with all the hair. And then we have our three gypsy vanner horses. We love gypsies because they are very social animals. They have a lot of personalities. They were bred to be that way, basically. They're also gorgeous, and they have a higher carrying capacity. And when you look at our clientele, we're not working with children. We're working with, adults that have been spending a lot of time out in the gym. So we need horses that can carry higher weight. And so that's why we've chosen basically to kind of go draft with them. And so we have Latte, Shahan, and Growler, who is only 3 years old, but he is a giant, and everybody loves working with Growler because he's just a teenager, and sometimes you need that kind of frustration built into the program too.
Excellent. And I don't know if you know this, how many of your heroes that have come through after coming through your program have gotten horses of their own?
Oh no, you're both muted.
I think you're muted.
That's a great question. We actually really tried to dissuade them from doing that because horses are very expensive. And we have this thing. So after you finish your phase 2, we want to make sure that we're not one of these programs that's like, okay, here's your certificate of graduation, or in our case, you get a belt buckle. And, good luck, because the reason this works is because of the horses. It's the magic of the horses. So we have what we call continuity of care, where we invite everybody to come back and be volunteers for the next group of people coming through. And over 85% of our participants come back to do just that because they want to help the next group experience that. I know it's so rewarding. So we're growing from within. We have an instructor track too. We've got several of our folks trying to get equine specialists in mental health and learning certification. We have a color guard that we go out in town and do outreach events with. And we're really excited. This winter, in April, we're going to be competing in the Northern Nevada Gypsy Fest in Winnemucca. And we're fielding with our horses a Horsemanship for Heroes team where our participants will show the horses both on the ground and in the saddle. And if they win something, they get to keep the ribbon. It just gives more. It's all about providing contact with the horses. But right now, I don't think anyone's bought a horse yet, but there are probably at least 4 people talking about it. And again, we're working on telling them
this is so much better. This is so beautiful for sustainability and for scaling in a way that maintains the relationships and the mission and the personalization. Like everybody has a stake in it. I love it. Leanne told me this was outstanding.
Not many hold on to their participants that long, and I think in the interviews that's a huge highlight. Is again that community that's built and that continuity of care and knowing that they have a place where they belong and can always kind of go back to that.
Outstanding. Okay, ready for the lightning round?
Ready.
You can't think about this first one. Okay. I'm gonna spit it out and then shout out your answer. Okay, 1 word to describe your partnership. Ready, set, go.
Excited.
Awesome.
Trust.
What's been the best part of the partnership?
People.
What surprised you most about working together?
Easy it is.
Good. I was going to say the growth and the motivation. They have made extreme growth and changes, and all the time I hear about, oh, well, somebody said we needed this, so we got it. Or, like, oh, we built a barn and we built an arena, which is, of course, a big deal, but it's super cool to see the motivation there. And even in the interviews, I hear participants saying all the time, well, I mentioned this and next week it was there, or they had heaters, or they had water, or whatever it may be.
Okay, this is great. One piece of advice for others who want to develop a similar university community partnership.
Don't be shy about doing something like this. It is very doable, especially if you've got a great partner like Leanne. And it's not a tremendous amount of work on our end at all, but it's still like helping the community as a whole.
I think mine would be listen more than you speak in the beginning, at least, to really understand your partner and what they're doing so that you can kind of really help them and work together rather than push a research agenda or a university agenda on the partner.
Thank you all so much. This just has been a beautiful episode, and you are truly impacting our heroes. And I just can't thank you enough for sharing your story. This is amazing. And I expect some pictures. Can you provide some pictures that we could put up to market this episode?
We could definitely do that.
Can we share them? Plus, I
We have
want
no
to
shortage
see.
of pictures.
Yeah, I need to see all the horses too.
They're beautiful horses too.
They sound gorgeous.
Sandra,
Awesome.
can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
I don't know if it came out necessarily or not, but so with veterans, emergency responders, and then as Kay said up front, their families as well. And so I think, have had 3 couples come through. So both veterans with their spouse, a Reno SWAT officer with his spouse, and we've also had a Gold Star family come through. The Gold Star family is a woman who had a 1-year-old son, was 4 months pregnant with her second son, and her husband was killed in Afghanistan back in oh goodness, 11, I think. The 3 of them, so the 2 boys and her, came through the program together, and it was the most powerful experience for them as a family, as well as for everybody that was a part of it. And when we operate, we have 1 horse, 1 volunteer, and the hero, and they are a team throughout. And so we try to keep that team, particularly the volunteers, and the bonds that are established in every class, but this one in particular, were just so meaningful to everyone. There were no dry eyes. It was amazing.
And Sandra, I just wanted to add, sorry, you're like, come on. But one more thing too that I wanted to say was, as far as the program ourselves and benefiting from having this partnership with Leanne, it's been tremendous. We were just on the front cover, and we had a big article in Path International, and we get to mention that we were doing this research project. We can't talk about the results yet, but just the fact that we're doing it is tremendous. And we also just really recently had a meeting with a foundation that's very serious about providing us funding, because we want to bring a contracted psychotherapist on board so that all of our sessions can be equine-assisted psychotherapy, and as opposed to learning, because we feel like that's the most beneficial thing. And the ability to state that we are in a research project with Purdue just gives us, I think, just that much more credibility to our program when it comes to, foundations. And this is the person we were talking to was an educator too. So he was just like all over that from UNR. So just as another side benefit to doing the research for a program.
You really are growing. This is incredible. So people who are watching, who are listening, how can they get in touch with you? How can they learn more about Horsemanship for Heroes? How can they learn more about you, Leanne, and what you bring to the table?
Go for it. Okay.
So we have a website. It's Horsemanship, the number 4, and then Heroes, horsemanship4heroes.org. Scott and I wholeheartedly believe that there are so many veterans, emergency responders, people that are dealing with trauma that can use this help. And you can't have enough of these programs. And we will bend over backwards to help people in telling them our story on how we established ourselves, how to find the funding, how to find the participants, all that stuff. So we're an open book. And if people want to contact us, we'd love to talk to them about it.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think to add to that, what Kay said, to add to that is, and you asked this question earlier at some point, I think, but the importance of, everybody that gets into something like this has a passion for it and wants to help, but the value of having at a minimum, a veteran or emergency responder as an advisor that can be with the organization for the journey is so important, because there's a culture aspect to what we do that you can't pick up without having somebody there that understands it. And so it makes for a more comfortable space when working with your participants, and in our case, our heroes. And I think it adds also validity to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And then if you want to contact me or learn more about my work, the Human Animal Partnerships and Interactions Lab, or the Happy Lab, we have a website that is available through the Purdue Vet School website.
Well, thank you all. I'll put that information in the show notes as well. It's been a total pleasure. So for everybody tuning in, that's a wrap for us. If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share it with your friends. And remember, together we can change the world. So use your powers for good.